You've probably heard about the mover component. Epic announced it as the future of character movement in Unreal Engine. Most developers are ignoring it, not because they don't know about it, but because the documentation is bare bones and not everyone wants to dig through C++ example code just to get their NPCs moving. In this video, I'm giving you the 4 steps on how to use the mover component with your NPCs. When you think about NPC movement, animations probably come to mind first. Then maybe you think about move to location and move to actor functions on your AI controller, as those are what actually tell your NPC where to go in the world. But here's what you may overlook: the character movement component. Without it, none of that other stuff matters. Your animations won't translate to actual motion, and those movement commands won't do anything. The character movement component sits at the heart of everything. It handles the actual physics and movement, like walking, crouching, and flying, while it feeds your animation blueprint the data to select the right animations. If you understand how movement actually works in Unreal Engine, the mover component isn't that complicated, and there are some real advantages to switching over. The mover component gives you significantly more flexibility in how you configure movement. Instead of working with the rigid structure of the character movement component, you define your own movement modes: walking, swimming, flying, and you can switch between them dynamically. So how do you actually implement this thing? The easiest approach is to create a base class in C++ for your NPCs. If you're primarily a blueprint developer, don't worry, this is straightforward. You need to implement the iMover input producer interface. You also need to add 3 key functions, namely produce input _ implementation on produce input in blueprint and get nav agent location. These functions handle how input gets fed into the mover component. Create a blueprint class from your new C++ base class. Override the onProduce input function. This is where you specify the input data that the mover component needs to actually move your character. This gives you granular control over how movement input is processed. Here's where things get frustrating with the current implementation. The default move to actor and move to location functions on the AI controller don't work with the mover component yet. Now there is an AI move to function that in theory should work with mover. I say in theory because I have not been able to get it working. I've tried multiple approaches, dug through the example plugin, and it just hasn't cooperated. So here's what I did instead. I just wrote my own move to location function directly in the NPC blueprint. This gives you complete control over how your NPC moves. You're working directly with the mover component's input system, so you're not fighting against any compatibility issues. You can customize the behavior exactly how you need it. It's extra work, but it's actually pretty straightforward once you understand what the AI controller functions were doing under the hood. When Epic eventually fixes the AI controller integration, you can either keep using your custom functions because they work, or you can swap back to the built-in ones. Before we continue, hit the like button if you find this valuable, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The last step is to update your animation blueprint. Instead of reading movement data from the character movement component, you need to pull it from the mover component. All those properties like velocity and direction you use to drive your animation state machine need to come from Mover now. Once you've swapped those references, your animations will respond to the Mover component's movement data. When you understand how the Mover component works, implementation isn't difficult. The main hurdle is just wrapping your head around the new architecture and dealing with the gaps in the current implementation, like those AI controller functions not working yet. This is still being actively developed, but will get better and the documentation will improve. AI controller integrations will get fixed, and eventually this will be more user-friendly than what we have now. If you're starting a new project, I'd seriously consider using Mover from the start to get ahead of the curve. If you're mid-project, maybe hold off unless you're hitting specific walls with the character movement component. If you've been avoiding creating those boss NPCs for your game, watch this video next and I'll show you they have more in common with regular NPCs than you think.